George Washington, the first President of the United States, was a soldier who served as the Commander-in-Chief of the American Revolutionary Army. He is British and was the Commander-in-Chief of the rebel forces who succeeded in a coup d'état from Britain in the North American colonies. He was originally from a wealthy family in Virginia, and had worked for the British governor of Virginia before the coup. Immediately after the founding of the United States in the late 1700s, George Washington's stature was enormous. This is because he won numerous battles in the American War of Independence as the Commander-in-Chief of the Independence Army. George Washington, who was elected president in 1789, began to organize internal events in the United States. He punished those he arrested while suppressing coups and civil protests, and killed countless Native Americans who were collaborating with the British Army during the Revolutionary War. George Washington drove out the Native Americans and secured the area they inhabited. At this time, the territory of the United States doubled by the time he left office than when he took office. After George Washington died, Napoleon appeared in Europe and it was a time of confusion due to war. France occupied most of Europe during the Napoleonic Wars, including Spain. The reason we learn about Napoleon when we learn world history is because the Napoleonic Wars had a snowball-like impact on the world rather than because he was famous. The occurrence of a war brings about bankruptcy of the national finance, whether the war is won or lost. Going to war at this time was an act of self-bankruptcy. Since the Napoleonic Wars occurred, people were dragged to the battlefield and the lack of finances had no choice but to collect more taxes. Napoleon had no money during the war. So he thought of selling the French colony. At this time, the newly independent United States wanted to purchase Louisiana land. Rather than wanting all of Louisiana, the United States wanted to buy New Orleans, a port city in the South. The port of New Orleans was the best route for exporting the fur obtained by hunting beavers in the Great Lakes to Europe by transporting it south along the river. At this time, New Orleans was occupied by France. So the United States asked France to purchase the land in New Orleans for $10 million. France then asked the United States to buy all the Louisiana land for $15 million. The U.S. government immediately accepted the proposal. Why did the French government want to sell American colonies? France was very busy with the Napoleonic Wars in Europe. At this time, there were movements in the colonies held by France that black slaves and colonists staged coups and attempted independence. Unable to quell this, the French government thought it was a better decision to sell the colony than to solve the problem. In this way the colony was sold to the United States, and the territory of the United States was considerably enlarged. At that time, the annual salary of white workers in the United States was about $150, but if you calculate the average annual salary in the United States at about $70,000, it is approximately 467 times. Multiplying $15 million by 467 is about $7 billion. In a word, it is like buying a huge territory at a very cheap price. 60 years later, the United States bought Alaska from Russia. In the 1700s, the Russian Empire was a powerless power in Europe. Russia wanted to influence European countries. The Russian Tsar at this time was Peter the Great, the most powerful and greatest man in Russian history. Instead of competing with European countries, he tried to expand his power elsewhere so as not to collide with them. Peter the Great had a man named Vitus Bering sail the northern part of North America. He discovered Alaska. The sea near Alaska where he sailed is called the Bering Sea. After obtaining land in Alaska, Russia sold a large amount of fur and animal oil from the seals it hunted. The Crimean War broke out in Crimea from 1853 to 1856. This was a war in which Russia was defeated by the Ottoman Empire and its allies of France and England. After losing the war, Russia sold Alaska to the United States in a financial crisis. Why did he sell Alaska? Russia was defeated by Britain's allies in the Crimean War, but now Canada was a British colony. Alaska was right next to Canada and at that time it was too far from the Russian capital to Alaska. Most of the Russian army was concentrated near the capital, so if Britain decided to invade Alaska, Russia could not defend it. Russia thought it would be taken away anyway, so let's just sell it to the United States. In March 1867, Alaska was sold to the United States for $7.2 million. However, at that time, the United States was in a very difficult time financially because it had only been about 2 years since the end of the Civil War. However, when the President of the United States at that time bought Alaska, the American people were outraged. However, Alaska land was later found to be a land of great treasures. Currently, 85% of Alaska's budget is financed by oil and gas sales. Currently Alaska's oil reserves are estimated to be between 4.3 billion and 16 billion barrels. Alaska is estimated to have the largest oil reserves in North America. Alaska was thus added to the United States in the late 1800s. But how did so many South American countries emerge under the United States? Thank you for watching the video. If you like this video, please hit the like and subscribe button.